Welcome. The following video describes the procedure of a qualitative content analysis for the article A Data-Driven Multi-Methods Approach for Identifying Ethical Concerns of Emerging Technologies. The following is the structure of the talk. First, I will explain the central research question and study design, followed by a brief explanation of qualitative content analysis and the exact procedure. First, I would like to explain the central research question and the study design. By combining different sources of data, we aim to answer our main research question. Which type of data can identify which kind of ethical concerns of laypersons regarding stratospheric aerosol injection? Whereby we focus here in this step on the assessment of open text responses. For this, we apply text analytical methods, more precisely, qualitative content analysis. For the study, we use stratospheric aerosol injection, abbreviated as SAI, as a use case, which is an emerging climate engineering technology. SAI decreases the amount of incoming solar radiation by releasing sulfur particles into the stratosphere, enhancing the aerosol's layers' reflective properties. This technique mimics the cooling effect caused by past volcanic eruption, where sulfur particles released into the atmosphere resulted in a decrease in temperature. However, SAI is an ethical, highly contested climate engineering technology. To identify and investigate ethical concerns regarding SAI in more detail, based on our previous study, we proposed a complex study design which was composed of two central procedures. As step 1 procedure, cognitive affective maps were collected as a pre-study to inform the step 2 procedure, a large-scale survey to measure the ethical concerns regarding SAI. Multiple reviews have shown that more than 80% of the respondents are not familiar with SAI in general. Therefore, we decided to use a scenario text to inform participants about SAI prior to collecting data. The scenario text describes in a balanced way the SAI technology and presents the technology in the context of climate change. The study relates three heterogeneous data sources, so-called cognitive affective maps, a survey, and open text, shown here in the blue circles. For each data source, we apply the appropriate type of data analysis, whereby we focus here on the analysis of the resulting answers to the open text question. In total, 579 text answers need to be summarized by us. How did we collect the text responses? Immediately following the scenario text, participants in the study had the task of answering the following open-ended question. When, in your opinion, is the described stratospheric aerosol injection technology morally right? Assuming that participants understand morality in different ways, we have defined this term. Morally right could express to this question the degree to which participants believe that the technology is morally acceptable. How could we now summarize the text responses? For this study, we apply the methods of qualitative content analysis. I relied on the following sources, referring in particular to Meyring's approach of structuring qualitative content analysis. What is the central goal of qualitative content analysis? Qualitative content analysis, according to Meyring, is a systematic method of analyzing textual data that involves coding and categorizing the content to derive themes and patterns. It emphasizes a structured and rigorous approach to uncover latent meanings and interpretations within the data. Meyring's approach includes several stages, such as preparation, forming categories, coding the material, and analyzing the results, all of which aim to systematically extract and understand the qualitative information present in the content. A process model for deductive category assignment is shown on the right, whereby I have predefined categories based on prior research and existing theories. These categories serve as a structured framework for coding and analyzing the content of the text response. It is central that predefined categories are adjusted in the course of qualitative content analysis, shown in the reverse arrow on the right. The need to modify predetermined categories while analyzing can be understood through the concept of the hermeneutic circle. Categories of analysis and the choices of analytical constructs are not fixed. Rather, they emerge as we engage with the text material. The interpretive process is considered hermeneutic because it's guided by our evolving comprehension of the text. This approach allows for the correction of initial misunderstanding or interpretational errors. The hermeneutic circle illustrates the relationship between our interpretation and the text that is being interpreted. Finally, what is our exact procedure to summarize the text answers? As already mentioned, qualitative content analysis is a systematic procedure consisting of multiple successive steps in a logical order. See the process model on the right. For our central task, summarizing 579 text answers, we are focusing here on 3 central steps of the process model. In the first coding process, see step 5 of the process model, we are reading the respective text responses in sequence, meaning line by line, and assign text sections to ethical arguments. If there's any doubt, the assignment should be made on the basis of the overall assessment of the respective text segment, or the residual category should be selected. I will explain the exact procedure on the next slide. In the first step, each of us will code the same 29 text answers. When each of us has finished the first step, I will revise the coding guidelines, and in a joint session, possible ambiguities and difficulties will be discussed together. In doing so, we will strive for a discursive agreement on the adapted coding guidelines. In the final step, the second coding process, the step 6 of the process model, we are reading the respective text responses again in sequence and assign text sections to ethical arguments. In this step, each of us will code 100 different text answers, which are partly overlapping, so we can check again for iterator reliability. To carry out the coding process of the text answers, I will provide you 3 things. First, I will provide you accounts for QCAmap to log in, a software for qualitative content analysis. Second, the coding guidelines containing all the theoretically derived ethical arguments regarding the stratospheric ozone injection technology, and finally, the scenario text, which was read by participants prior to answering the question. In the scenario text, some ethical arguments are already mentioned, but I would not like you to focus only on these arguments. On the next slides, I want to explain you step by step how to assign ethical arguments to the given text answers. As we said, we will use QCAmap, a software for qualitative content analysis. Applying the software developed by Fensel and Meyring, we are using a strictly rule-guided procedure to assign category to text segments. I will provide you accounts via email, and you need to log in with your respective account on the following homepage. First, I would like to explain the process briefly in theory and then show it to you hands-on. When you start coding your text material, you need to select a specific text segment and a window will pop up and you can assign an ethical argument. If you have the impression that a person in a particular section of the text is making an ethical argument that relates to the morality of the SAI technology, but there is no appropriate ethical argument in the coding guidelines, please assign the residual category -99 to this text segment. It is not necessary to save the documents of your actions. Everything will be saved automatically in the QCAmap software. To repeat, in the first coding process, you need to code 29 text answers, and in the second coding process, 100 text answers. On the next two slides, I want to show you the coding process hands-on. To motivate you, I want to highlight that the answers of many participants are very elaborate and could sometimes include multiple ethical arguments. As an example, I will show the application of the QCAmap software using a very negative and a very positive evaluation of the morality of the SAI technology. For this, I log in with my account to the QCAmap software. So I click here on the link. I click on Login and start working. Then with the provided account, please log in here. And now for the application example, for the use case, I click here, hands-on QCAmap on the project. And the only thing you need to do is click here on Start Coding. When you have clicked on Start Coding, you see that the screen is split in three parts. On the left, you see here our central research question. We want to identify central ethical arguments regarding SAI. Therefore, we apply deductive category assignment. And what's super important, at best, every marked text passage should be understandable on its own without the surrounding text. On the right, you see the coding guideline. If you scroll down, you see that we have in total 20 different ethical arguments and one residual category. If you now want to assign an ethical argument to a certain segment of text, you just need to mark the text. A window will pop up. And here, just by clicking on a certain argument, like here, arming the future, these argument would be now assigned to this segment of text. Now, in this case, it makes no sense. So that's why we would like to delete the argument again. You just can click again on the argument and then click on delete. And now you could redo the procedure. And here, before starting, I assigned ethical arguments, which makes most sense, in my opinion, to certain text segments. For example, here. He or she, the respondents, emphasized that the technology, the implementation, is quite uncertain and is highly unpredictable. That would be the ethical arguments, number 10, of side effects unseen or not predictable. Here you see the definition. It should be highlighted that there are uncertainty in climate engineering development, which cannot be substantially reduced through research. And because of these uncertainties, the deployment of this technology is considered morally wrong. As a second argument, the respondents highlighted here that that the global population has to be the consequences of a single nation choice. And that's ethical troubling. And enforcing potential global suffering based on the decisions of one or handful of countries. And that would be the ethical argument number 16, risk of unilateral use. So The research and development of climate engineering technology, especially SAI, may result in the unilateral deployment with catastrophic consequences. What you see here in the coding guidelines, if the respondents would have highlighted that it's something positive that single countries could deploy such a technology, then you would need to assign to the text segment the argument, the ethical argument, do it alone. Because here you see in the coding guidelines, this argument emphasizes that the unilateral use of climate engineering technology is positive and not negative. Because a determined group of nations can deploy such technology which would benefit the entire world. And that's important that you differentiate between kind of similar ethical arguments. So that would be the response of one respondent. And now we have also here highly positive evaluation, the response of the second respondent in our application, in our hands-on case. Now, here we see a positive ethical arguments, the so-called lesser evil argument. If I scroll up, we could read the definition that in a hypothetical scenario, there may be a future situation where the deployment of a climate engineering technology is necessary to prevent catastrophic climate change. And here it's important that a participant or a respondent emphasizes a certain scenario where deploying such a technology may be less worse than the risks associated with not deploying it. And here, the participants highlighted that for the betterment of humanity, such as the current challenge of climate change, the necessity becomes apparent. Because numerous climate commitments globally failing short of their goals. Kind of related to the argument in the next section would be the argument of the technological fix. So the definition here, technological fixes are attractive when citizens fail to make necessary behavioral changes, and they're often simple and faster and require less effort than extensive social transformation. And embracing such technologies of this nature becomes imperative to prevent dire consequences. So to solve climate change, it's possible to use these technology as a possible technological fix. If you have now finished coding or you wanted to take a break, now what you would do, you click here on Finish Coding. If you are finished, you would click here, Close Question for Analysis. If you want to continue coding in a later point, you just click here, Exit, but do not close. Now, after you have seen how the QCAmap software works, I briefly want to show you the coding guidelines and make one final note of caution. The coding guidelines consist of 4 columns. The first one contains the names of the ethical arguments. In total, we have 20 different arguments and 1 residual category. The definition column defines the respective ethical arguments, whereby I always use between 2 and 3 bullet points to define a single ethical argument. Next, the coding rules column enables you to differentiate between similar ethical arguments. For example, you could differentiate moral hazard to the arming the future argument by the negative, respectively positive future perspective on the research of climate engineering technologies. Finally, in the general evaluation column, there's the overall judgment if an ethical argument is predominantly positive, negative, or ambivalent, which are highlighted in the QCAmap software by the colors green, red, and purple. I would like you to download the coding guidelines and read the documents several times before start coding. Please also read the scenario text of the SAI technology once. Now I'm coming to my final slide. I want to emphasize it's super important that you're following coding rules. These are rules on how to proceed when assigning text segments to categories. Importantly, every marked text passage should be understandable on its own without the surrounding text. It could be just one meaningful part of a sentence, or if multiple sentences comprise an ethical argument, they are coded as one ethical argument. But be cautious. Remember here we aim to interpret the latent content of the single text answers, which involves a high abstraction level and a high degree of interpretation. We need to resist drawing the interpretation too far, and in case if you're facing ambiguities, I encourage you to apply the residual category. And finally, these are my references. Thank you for your attention and happy coding.